Our guest today is Edward E. Bartlett. He is president of SAVE, an organization focused on fairness and due process on college campuses. Over the course of his career, he has worked as an Army medical corpsman, community health educator, professor, journal editor, author, risk management consultant, and government regulator. Mr. Bartlett, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us. You have done some extensive work in looking at the gender culture and what is going on college campuses, what's going on in culture and in the world. And basically, you, as well as many of us, believe that feminists have become the new extremists. What does that actually mean?
Well, Laura-Lynn, great to see you and chat with you. So I think it's fair to say that feminism has always been held a radical ideology. The reason is simple, because feminism is based on Marxist ideology. But that radicalism generally was not recognized until literally probably the last 3 months. And I pegged the beginning of this radical change of the public perception back to May. You may recall there was a takeover of the library at Columbia University in New York City. And this was an anti-Semitism event. And as a result of that, they didn't just go in peacefully. They took over the library, they defaced it, and so forth and so on. At the end of this, they arrested 78 persons. 60 out of the 78 were females. Okay, so that was sort of the first heads up that this new, anti-Semitism, radicalism really wears more of a female face than a male face. And then, so that was back in early May. And then just going to just 3 weeks ago, in the United States, we had this Sydney Sweeney has great jeans advertisement. Have you been following that?
Yes, I have. This young, really cute girl in the jean outfit. Yeah.
So you look at the reactions that triggered. I mean, I've seen the ad, and maybe a tad risque, but okay, hey, we're not going to get upset about these things. Well, truly, and these were almost all women. They were decrying this advertisement, saying this is, quote, Nazi propaganda. This Sydney Sweeney is promoting genetic superiority. She's promoting white supremacy. And this came from women that you would normally expect to be at least halfway rational.
So something about it, yeah. And then I heard that there was another ad that came out. And who was in this one? It's a left-leaning, the big singer, JT. Beyonce. Beyonce comes out with an ad that is like, and there's not a word spoken. So it's these two, these two things. A white girl, and sort of a bit risque. For me, it's a bit too risque, but it's about the cleavage. For me, it's not about white supremacy and Nazism.
Yeah, I have not seen that Beyonce ad, so I can't say much about it. But truly, we are, this whole other side of feminism has come out. It's not just in the US or in Canada. We're seeing these trends in South Korea, United Kingdom. You may remember shortly after Donald Trump was elected that American women went into, call it a psychotic rage if you want to, and they were actually mimicking this concept called the 4Bs that they were talking about in South Korea, and referring to not having any relationships with men, not getting married with men. I mean, this is from South Korea. So again, this is not just a North American phenomenon. We see this in the UK. We see it in Australia and around the world.
Wow. So on your website, if I can see here, you've got Men's Equality Network, and basically There are debates about gender equality, typically this says only on issues that pertain to women. But what about gender equality for men? Many persons are surprised to learn that American men are lagging behind women in many ways. So it looks like the tide has turned from the 60s, burn your bra, and we demand that we're paid equally, that now there might be a move in an opposite direction.
Very much so. And I mentioned that feminism is based on a neo-Marxist ideology, and the core of that ideology is that that women live in what they call a patriarchy. Sometimes they say an oppressive patriarchy, and that this patriarchy pervades every nook and cranny of society. Well, as you just read there from our webpage, when you look at the actual numbers, when you look at the data, it turns out that it's men who are lagging behind women in terms of their lifespan, in terms of their enrollment in colleges, in terms of their treatment by the legal system. 2/3 of all homeless persons are male. You look at who are the people who die on the job, 93% male. Again, there's 12 different areas. I'm not going to go into all 12, but put that together, you have to say, oh, if there truly is a patriarchy, the patriarchs are doing a pretty bad job, because why are they allowing men to be lagging in these 12 different areas?
How do you think this happened? I mean, I remember seeing some of the media over the years. I mean, Bart Simpson's an idiot. Even if you go back to the Cosby Show, which unfortunately in real life Cosby has been a dismal failure, but on the show, you know, there would often sort of be like, you know, he might not be the brightest, or, you know, his wife was always sort of one up on him, and Archie Bunker, things like this. Do you think this has contributed to it?
Absolutely. And in fact, that media portrayals is one of the 12 areas that we have identified in which men are lagging behind women. I believe the number is, of all media portrayals, 69% of men are negative, which is pretty astonishing. I mean, if you go back long enough, you may remember the TV sitcom called Father Knows Best, and men were generally portrayed in a positive way. Well, that has definitely changed. That's part of this narrative of the patriarchy, and you know, any way that to vilify the men, that's sort of considered to be acceptable behavior.
Wow. So I pulled up this 12 areas of male disadvantage in the United States, and it's pretty serious, actually. Even when it speaks about false accusation, that's really risen, and much more against men than women.
It is. False allegations is one of the 12 areas, and you can see the numbers right there on the screen. And this was a survey that we actually did, a nationally representative survey. 11% of men said that they had been falsely accused of domestic violence or sexual assault or child abuse, compared to 8% of women. Um, and we've actually done the same survey in several other countries, again with similar numbers. So, you know, why is it that men are being hit with these false allegations? Well, that's a long discussion, but it's just another example of the areas in which men are lagging behind women.
I'm really surprised by this one on victims of violence.
Yeah, well, that's the homicide issue that you know, I think it's 90%, something like that, of homicide victims are male. Um, so that's a big one. If you look at the next one on the screen, shared parenting. This is a, a really big issue, because when a child, especially when a boy, grows up without contact, regular contact with his father, he is far more likely to have, uh, you know, delinquency problems, drop out of school, you know, problems with the legal, with the law and so forth. So So not having, regular contact, 50-50 contact after divorce is really a critical issue for the welfare of children, including girls as well.
Yeah, 100%. It does and has gone unfairly the other way. And in the criminal system, this is saying that men face more severe treatment at every step of the criminal legal process, especially during the charging, plea bargaining, and sentencing stages. And the bias is so severe that male victims of statutory rape often are required to pay child support to their rapist.
Yeah, I mean, that particular point is so shocking that people shake their head and say, well, no fair legal system would allow that to happen. But in fact, it has happened. It is happening we're talking about boys who've been sexually assaulted, usually by their school teacher, female school teacher. She got pregnant, and guess who was on the hook for child support? The male victim of that female-driven sexual assault. It's just it's so horrendous. It's hard to think of words.
And this one, going back to media, so 69% of media portrayals of men are unfavorable. This goes back, and now we're talking decades of it. I'm going to say maybe like 30 years at least. So at least 40 years even. I don't want to give away my age or anything, but
We're all 23 years old on this call.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is so now we have indoctrinated the youth. We have shown even subliminally how to degrade men, and it's very unfair, actually, and I think it's a serious problem. And even women who like traditional roles of being a wife and a mother and caring for their husband who might be in the workforce, these even are things that might be frowned upon, like, oh, you don't work, like it's just not really correct, like you're not participating and contributing to the home if you don't have an outside job, when in actual fact the greatest contribution is being at home and caring for your family.
Yeah, it's not only the greatest contribution, but when you do surveys of women themselves internationally, they say that the things that give them most life satisfaction are being a mother and a parent and having a network of friendships. And that's the most important thing. Now go to UN Women at the United Nations. They never talk about that. That's just totally off their radar screen. So we have this, again, this total disconnect between what the feminists are saying and what, quote, real women want. But just to transition here, I want to emphasize that there's not only been a big change in perceptions of the feminist movement, there has also been a dramatic change in how men are now being increasingly perceived in a positive way, especially in the United States. I date this back to November 5th, 2024. That's, of course, the date that Donald Trump won the election. And when people started pouring through the election results, they found, oh my gosh, it was men who voted in droves for Donald Trump. White men, Hispanic men, Black men, low-income men. I mean, really across the board, it was just amazing and astonishing. And in fact, there was an editorial written that referred to men as the new, quote, power demographic in presidential elections. So no surprise, following this election, we have seen numerous lawmakers, again, in the United States, issuing positive statements about the important, the irreplaceable role of men and fathers. And I'm talking about Donald Trump himself. Even former President Barack Obama issued a nice statement. So we've actually compiled about 12 of these statements, literally just in the past few months. So again, we are seeing a radical change here, both in terms of feminists being perceived negatively and men being perceived positively.
How fantastic. How fantastic. And I think with the rise even of strong male voices and podcasters, men speaking the truth, unashamedly, Christian men, many of them, standing for values that are traditional and being positive and powerful in it all, I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing a renaissance. Um, it really is stunning, and I'd like to see more columnists and editorial writers talk about this. I really do think we're in the middle of a renaissance of a societal transformation. Again, not just in North America. We're seeing this in Europe. We're seeing this in Australia and so forth. So, that old expression, the times they are a-changing.
Amen. My final question to you is this going to be good for marriages? Because I really think that we've seen so much divorce, and we've seen a lot of really horrible things that have come into our culture over many years. I personally have lived through the ravages, what this does to the family, and it's quite devastating. But to truly honor men, I think that in my raising in a traditional church where men were honored in my younger years, I had this foundation of really believing that men were great. I also had an incredible father who was very strong. He was opinionated, he said his opinions, and so was my mother strong. So, they navigated all of this, and I lived to see them almost 60 years of marriage before they passed away. But in the younger years, of course, I think we went through a phase where, like, men through the media and all of this were not celebrated for the strong manliness that they bring. And it almost became, politically incorrect to celebrate a man's strength. And I can relate it to, it became incorrect to celebrate a white person's or a white woman's strength in some respects because, you have it all. So the men are powerful, it seems. So then society tried to degrade them. But now, if this is a return, this is godly and biblical, and it's good for marriages. It's good for women to love and honor and respect and care for the beauty of a strong man. And so as you see with this switch, in the next 10 years, do you think we might see some positive changes? Maybe we can get that divorce rate down.
Well, funny thing you mentioned that, because the most recent information from the United States shows that divorce rates, in fact, have gone down in the last 10, 15 years or so. So that's certainly, a glimpse of good news. The key, of course, though, is the marriage rate. That has not gone up. And part of it is that men have been burned so badly by, marriages where they lost custody of their children, that, a number of men have just said, sorry, I'm not going to do that again. But bottom line, the fact that the divorce rate is definitely going down, I think this bespeaks that we are going to see radical good changes coming up in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow. I absolutely love it, Mr. Bartlett. Thank you for your time. This is great news. Let's talk about it again. Keep informing us of the trends and, the different things that are going on. We love hearing about this, and we appreciate your work for all of society in bringing good and positive role modeling and good information to all of us. Thank you so much.
Great to chat with you. Be in touch.
Thank you. God bless.